What would you sacrifice to save the one person you love most? The icy wind outside couldn't compare to the chill running through Lily Bennett's spine. Her fingers trembled as she stared down at the sleek, leather-bound contract resting on the dark walnut desk. Her father's funeral had been 3 days ago. Now this? You seriously expect me to agree to this? She whispered, voice taut with disbelief. Across the room, in front of a towering wall of glass that overlooked the snow-laden streets of downtown Chicago, stood Julian Ashford. The man's silver-gray gaze was as unreadable as the sky behind him. Your father owed me $9 million, he said coolly. This agreement is your only way out. Lily's throat tightened. By selling myself to you for a year? The words left a bitter taste on her tongue. I prefer to think of it as a mutually beneficial arrangement, Julian replied, turning fully to face her. At 36, he wore power like a second skin chiseled, sharp-suited, and unapologetically ruthless. And your mother's medical expenses, he added, are what, 50 grand a month? The treatment she needs isn't exactly charity-funded. Lily's stomach sank. The cancer diagnosis had hit like a freight train, just weeks before her father's so-called boating accident. Too many tragedies, in too short a time, too many unanswered questions. I won't be your toy, she said, forcing her voice to steady. Julian stepped forward. His navy suit was impeccable, not a wrinkle in sight. Only the faint scar running from his temple to his jaw betrayed the polished perfection. I don't need companionship, Miss Bennett, he said smoothly. What I require is your presence at select social events, help with some business ventures, and complete discretion. He slid the contract toward her. Your father's schemes damaged my reputation. You'll help repair it. Lily's phone buzzed. Midwest Hope Medical Center. Insurance authorization denied. Please contact billing. And my mother's care? She asked, barely above a whisper. Fully covered for the duration of our contract. Once the year ends, your debt is forgiven. You walk away. She thought of their cramped little home in the suburbs of Evanston, the stack of unpaid bills, the tearful late-night talks with her mother's doctors. She was 23, no degree, no job, no options. What exactly would you expect from me? You'd live at my Aspen property, accompany me to events, and curate my art collection. It's in desperate need of organization. Beyond that, he shrugged, I value loyalty and competence. Provide those, and we'll remain strictly professional. His tone implied the opposite if she failed. Ashford Industries practically was Chicago. One word from him, and she'd never work in the city again. And if I say no, she asked, then your mother loses treatment. Your house is foreclosed, and I'll pursue legal avenues to recover every penny. Lily stood, trying to regain an ounce of control. My father didn't steal from you. The courts would disagree, Julian said, nudging a pen toward her. 1 year, 1 contract. For your mother's future, some might even call that generous. Outside, the snow thickened. The Chicago skyline blurred into a frozen haze, much like Lily's hopes. She reached for the pen. I want it in writing that my mother's treatment is guaranteed. Page 6. Paragraph 2, Julian replied. My attorneys made sure everything is legally airtight. As she signed, a single tear splashed onto the page. He didn't acknowledge it. Nathan will drive you home to pack, Julian said, taking the contract. You have 24 hours. After that? He didn't need to finish. She already knew. The city skyline vanished behind a curtain of thickening snow, just like Lily Bennett's remaining choices. She picked up the pen, its weight heavier than expected. I want it in writing, she said firmly, that my mother's treatment is guaranteed. Julian Ashford didn't flinch. Page 4, paragraph 3. My lawyers made sure it's airtight. Something like faint approval flickered in his expression. Lily signed. A tear slipped from her lashes, splashing softly on the page. Julian didn't acknowledge it. Nathan will take you home. You have 24 hours to pack and settle your affairs. He took the document, fingers grazing hers for a fleeting second. Lily recoiled as if scorched. Julian's expression twitched. Was it surprise? But it disappeared in an instant, replaced with his usual glacial calm. Until tomorrow, Miss Bennet, he said, gesturing toward the door. A tall, broad-shouldered man waited there, dressed in a dark suit and shadowed by quiet authority. Outside, Nathan Reynolds gave her a crooked smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. First time I've seen someone willingly walk into the lion's den, he murmured, leading her to the elevator. Most try to bolt. What happens to them? Lily asked, dread curling in her chest. Nathan's laugh was low and empty. Nothing good. The boss isn't exactly known for mercy. As the elevator descended into the underground garage, Lily tried to steady her breathing. What had she signed up for? Who was Julian Ashford, really, beneath the cold charm and polished suits? He's fair in his own way, Nathan said, watching her with unsettling focus. Stick to the rules. You'll make it through. What rules? Nathan's grin sharpened. Rule 1. Julian Ashford owns what he buys. Rule 2. Everything in his world has a place, don't step out of yours. And Rule 3. He unlocked a sleek black SUV, the chrome gleaming under dim garage lights. Never try to get close to him. The last girl who did? Disappeared. No trace. Snow began to pile on the windshield as they pulled out of the garage. Chicago fell away behind them, blurred by the blizzard and the storm building inside Lily. 24 hours of freedom left. The estate emerged from the snow like something torn from a dream or a nightmare. Wrought iron gates parted silently as they approached. The winding drive twisted through towering pines, each limb heavy with snow, until the house appeared. A fortress of glass and stone carved into the aspen mountainside. Nathan parked beneath the stone overhang. You've got 7 minutes to unpack. Mr. Ashford expects you in the East Gallery. She grabbed her single suitcase, fingers stiff with nerves. 6 minutes now, Nathan added, checking his watch. Don't keep him waiting. Inside, a stone-faced woman greeted her. Mrs. Lee, she introduced herself without warmth, then turned briskly down the corridor. The mansion was hauntingly silent, footsteps echoing against marble floors. They passed rooms filled with priceless art sculptures and paintings that belonged in world-class museums. Your quarters, Mrs. Lee said, opening a set of double doors. The suite was larger than Lily's entire house in Evanston. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking view of snow-covered peaks. The bathroom is through there. Closet is fully stocked with appropriate attire. Lily turned, confused. Mr. Ashford anticipated my wardrobe wouldn't measure up. Mrs. Lee gave no reply, her face unreadable. 5 minutes, she said before disappearing into the hall. When the door shut behind her, Lily rushed to the closet and froze. Dozens of designer outfits lined the racks, arranged by color. Each item was in her exact size. Tags fluttered like warning signs, showing prices that made her chest tighten. At the back hung gowns so expensive they could have bought her father's entire car twice. She swallowed hard and reached for the simplest thing she could find. Black slacks and a cream silk blouse. She had no idea what kind of world she was about to step into. But she could feel it already. This wasn't survival. It was surrender with conditions. Lily had just slipped into the black slacks and cream silk blouse when 3 sharp knocks landed on her door. Time's up, Nathan called. The East Gallery stretched across the entire wing of the house, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the valley, now vanishing under the shadows of dusk. Dozens of paintings filled the space in no particular order. Some spots on the walls were glaringly empty, like unfinished sentences waiting for their final word. Julian Ashford stood with his back to her, facing a large abstract canvas. He didn't turn when he spoke. "You're 17 seconds late. I got lost," Lily lied. "No, you didn't. Nathan brought you." He turned then, eyes flicking over her outfit. His expression didn't give away a single thought. "You'll need to work on your time management." "Or what?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. "You'll auction me off to another billionaire?" A flicker of something dangerous crossed his eyes. "Careful, Miss Bennett. Our agreement is legally binding, but it says nothing about how comfortable your year has to be." He walked toward her with slow, deliberate steps, hands clasped behind his back. "This collection is a mess. No structure, no logic. You'll catalog every piece, trace their provenance, and build a system that makes sense." "I studied psychology," Lily said, "not art history." "Then you'll learn." He nodded toward a sleek desk in the corner, where a laptop waited. "You have 2 weeks." She glanced around the massive space, filled with hundreds of artworks. "All of this, in 2 weeks?" His tone cooled further. "Is that a problem?" She swallowed. "No. Good." He turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "Dinner's at 8. Formal attire. You'll join me." "Why?" He raised an eyebrow at the challenge in her voice. "Because I bought your time, Miss Bennett, and I choose how it's spent." When he was gone, Lily approached the desk. The laptop was filled with disorganized files, mismatched labels, incomplete records. A handwritten note rested beside it. "Prove your worth or pack your bags." Hours later, Lily descended the stairs wearing a midnight blue gown that hugged her figure too perfectly to be coincidence. Her stomach fluttered with nerves as she entered the grand dining hall. A long table stretched out before her, enough to seat 20. But only 2 places had been set, one at each end. Julian stood when she walked in. His tuxedo was immaculate, emphasizing his tall, commanding presence. For a fleeting second, Lily saw what the rest of the world saw, a handsome, powerful man with the world at his feet. Then she remembered the contract. "You clean up well," he said, gaze lingering a moment too long. "The dress was in my closet," she replied. "Yes, Mrs. Lee has excellent taste." She sat. He followed, still watching her with that same calm scrutiny. She barely touched the elaborate courses, as they were served exotic dishes she couldn't name. "Tell me about yourself," he said suddenly. Lily hesitated. "Why?" "You paid for my presence, not my past." His mouth tightened slightly. "I like to understand what resides in my home, just as I understand every piece in my collection. So I'm just another acquisition?" "My art doesn't talk back," he said, sipping his wine. The jab landed, but it was what he said next that chilled her. "Your father never mentioned how perceptive his daughter could be." Her spine stiffened. "You knew him?" "Well enough to know he was a liar and a thief." Julian set his glass down with deliberate care. "He convinced me to invest in developments that never existed, use new investor money to pay off old ones, a textbook Ponzi scheme." "That's not possible," Lily said, shaking her head. "He was a high school economics teacher. He could barely afford our lake house, let alone this." Julian arched an eyebrow. "And the medical bills? The trips? The sudden inheritance from your mother's side? Where exactly did you think all that money came from?" The room spun slightly. Her father always said it was smart investing. "Or family money." "You're lying," she whispered. "I don't waste time with lies," he said, voice low. "The truth is always more effective. Miss Bennett, truth is far more useful than lies." Julian Ashford studied her stunned expression with something almost like curiosity. "You truly didn't know," he said softly. I assumed you'd want to understand why you're here. I want proof, Lily said, rising suddenly. Show me. There are file cabinets in your suite, he replied. Everything you need is there. She stared at him for a moment, then pushed back from the table. May I be excused? We haven't finished dinner. I've lost my appetite. Something flickered in his expression, something like respect. He nodded once. Back in her suite, Lily went straight to the corner cabinet. Her hands trembled as she opened the drawers. Bank statements, investment records, email printouts, dozens of files meticulously labeled. Each page drove a nail into the coffin of the life she thought she had. Her father's secrets unfolded before her, evidence of a second life wrapped in lies and fraud. Tears blurred her vision. Her knees buckled beneath her, but she refused to fall. A soft knock broke the silence. When she opened the door, no one was there, just a silver tray with a pot of tea and a single card. Elegant script on ivory paper. Truth hurts. How we respond defines us. Your work begins tomorrow at 7 a.m. Outside her window, moonlight danced on freshly fallen snow. It made the harsh landscape look almost gentle, like the man who now held her future in his hands. Beautiful, cold, and dangerous. 2 weeks into her captivity, Lily had learned 3 things about Julian Ashford. He demanded perfection. He loathed weakness. And he never touched anyone. She noticed it during meetings at dinner with his executive team. When his CFO extended a hand, Julian simply nodded. When his head of marketing brushed his sleeve, he flinched as though it burned. Every gesture was controlled, every inch of space around him, sacred, until tonight. The gallery glowed with soft lights and crystal. Aspen's elite flowed through the space in silk gowns and tailored suits, admiring Lily's newly curated exhibit. She had worked 18-hour days to finish it in time, organizing pieces into thematic arcs that told stories through brushstroke and shadow. You must be the new one. A woman with silver hair and a diamond necklace appraised her with an icy smile. Julian always did have a taste for interesting projects. Lily forced a smile. Her black cocktail dress, another too perfect pick from the curated closet, felt suddenly suffocating. I'm his art curator. Of course you are, dear. The woman's gaze sharpened. There was Adriana before you. Russian, I think. Made it almost a year. Before Lily could ask more, Julian appeared beside them, like a shadow in tailored black. Mrs. Harrington, he said smoothly, I see you've met Miss Bennet. Charming girl, the older woman said, brushing Julian's arm with manicured fingers before drifting off. His jaw clenched at the contact. You've done well with the collection, he said to Lily, lowering his voice. The investors are pleased. High praise, she replied, eyes scanning the room, especially from someone who treats people like property. Careful, he warned. So quietly, only she could hear. These people smell weakness like sharks. She smiled tightly at a passing couple. Exactly like sharks. Julian's tone shifted. The man approaching now is Edward Crane. He's tried to take my company 3 times. Be polite. Say nothing. A man in his 60s approached with the confidence of old money-tanned skin, crisp suit, sharp gaze. Julian, my boy, he drawled, finally letting the world see your treasures. Then his eyes landed on Lily. And who is this exquisite piece? Lily Bennet. My curator, Julian replied without missing a beat. Curator? Such a waste of potential. Crane took her hand without asking. His grip lingered, too firm, too long. You should consider joining my foundation. We specialize in developing bright young talent. She's under contract, Julian said flatly. Crane's grin widened. Everything has a price, even your most prized acquisitions. Something about the way he said it made Lily's skin crawl. She withdrew her hand. "If you'll excuse me," she said tightly, "the caterers need direction." She escaped to the kitchen, heart pounding. She didn't know who Edward Crane really was, but she had the sinking feeling that beneath the tuxedo and charm, he was far more dangerous than anyone realized. Lily leaned against the marble counter, hands gripping its cool edge as she tried to breathe. Edward Crane's attention had felt invasive. It wasn't just business rivalry. It was something darker, possessive, predatory. "You okay?" Nathan appeared at her side. His trademark smirk was gone. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just needed air." "Crane's bad news," Nathan muttered, glancing back toward the party. "The boss's history with him? Ugly." "What kind of history?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "Not my place to say. Just be careful around him." When Lily returned, the gala had shifted to a formal dinner in the grand hall. She found her place near Julian at the head table directly across from Crane, whose eyes immediately found hers again. Throughout the meal, his gaze never strayed far. It slithered over her skin, making her pulse race in all the wrong ways. "More wine, Miss Bennet?" Julian asked as the servers cleared the main course. "Please," she said, keeping her voice steady. The server moved too quickly, jostling her arm. Wine sloshed from her glass, arcing through the air, aimed directly at Julian's immaculate white shirt. Without thinking, Lily lunged forward, her hand shooting out to block the spill. Her fingers brushed against Julian's wrist. The contact lasted less than a second, but the reaction was immediate and electric. Julian flinched, a visible shudder running through him. His pupils dilated, his breath caught. For a breathtaking heartbeat, the man who'd kept every expression controlled, every movement calculated, simply unraveled. And in that instant, Lily saw something like a flicker of memory not her own. A boy, eyes hollow with fear, trapped in a place where no child should ever be. Then it was gone. Julian jerked away, his chair scraping sharply against the floor. The entire room fell into a hush. Dozens of heads turned. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Ashford," Lily began. "It's nothing," he said quickly, voice tight. He adjusted his cuffs with mechanical precision, his composure returning like a mask snapping into place. Across the table, Crane's eyes gleamed with intrigue. "Fascinating," he murmured. The rest of the dinner was a blur. Julian avoided her gaze, but she could feel his awareness of her, like a pressure in the air, humming just beneath the surface. When the last guest departed, he vanished without a word. Unable to sleep, Lily wandered into the East Gallery. The once chaotic space now felt transformed, each section carefully curated to tell a visual story. Darkness, grief, struggle, but also light, healing, hope. "You see it," a voice said behind her. She turned. Julian stood in the doorway. His jacket was off, tie loosened. For once he looked almost human. "The collection," he clarified, stepping into the room. "Most people only see numbers." "You found the story. There's always a story," she said quietly, even in silence. He moved toward her, stopping a respectful distance away. "What happened earlier?" she began. "You shouldn't have touched me," he said. "But it wasn't your fault. I won't do it again. No. He paused, struggling. "It's a neurological response. A kind of hypersensitivity." "You don't like being touched," she said gently. "I don't experience touch like other people." His voice was low, almost ashamed. "But with you, it was different." The confession hung in the space between them, fragile and heavy all at once. Before she could answer, Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Sir, there's a situation that needs your attention." The vulnerability in Julian's eyes vanished. His walls slammed back into place. "We'll continue this conversation another time, Miss Bennet." As he left, Lily glanced at the nearby security monitor. A car sat idling at the front gate. Her heart stopped. It was her mother's car. Without thinking, she turned and bolted for the entrance. "She can't come in," Mrs. Lee said firmly, stepping in front of the door. "That's my mother," Lily protested, heart racing. "You can't just turn her away." Mr. Ashford left explicit instructions. No visitors, especially not your mother. Behind her, Nathan's voice cut through the tension. "Boss's orders." Lily spun around. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Nathan's expression softened, just for a second. "Some advice? Don't trust anyone from your old life right now, including family." Lily turned back to the window, just in time to watch security usher her mother's aging Subaru down the winding drive. The car disappeared into the snow, swallowed by the trees. A thought crept into her mind, quiet and terrible. What if nothing she believed about her life had ever been real? What if the version of reality she'd grown up in was just another carefully constructed illusion, like Julian Ashford's perfect composure? And what did it mean that a single touch had cracked both of their facades? The east wing of the mansion remained locked at all times. 3 different staff members had warned her away from it, which of course only fueled Lily's curiosity. After nearly a month in Julian's gilded prison, the forbidden wing had become her obsession. Her opportunity came during the spring charity gala. With Julian busy charming Colorado's wealthiest donors and the staff preoccupied with canapes and champagne, Lily slipped away. Her fingers brushed the stolen master key card lifted from Mrs. Lee's unattended cleaning cart hours earlier. The lock clicked open with a soft sound. She stepped inside. Her heart thundered in her chest. Motion sensors flickered to life, bathing the hallway in a dim, warm glow. This space felt nothing like the rest of the mansion. Where the main halls screamed wealth and prestige, this place whispered something else. Memory, vulnerability, secrets. The walls here weren't lined with priceless paintings, but photographs, black and white, color, framed with care. One stern-looking man appeared in many of them, Harrison Ashford, the legendary founder of Ashford Industries. But it was the boy who captured Lily's breath. Thin, quiet, haunted eyes. Julian. He looked maybe 14. In every photo, he seemed slightly removed, shoulders tense, expression guarded. In one image, he stood beside Harrison, both in tuxedos. The elder Ashford's hand gripped the boy's shoulder possessively. Julian didn't smile, in a single frame. "What happened to you?" Lily whispered, fingertips grazing the cold glass. At the end of the hall stood a heavy oak door. Inside was an office unlike Julian's pristine study. Here, papers were strewn across the desk. Books leaned at odd angles. A well-worn leather chair sat beside a fireplace that hadn't been used in years. Drawn by instinct, Lily approached the desk and opened a leather-bound journal. On the first page, a handwritten message. "To my son Julian, on the anniversary of your new life, may you never forget what we overcame." Harrison, she flipped through business notes, ledgers, and then stopped cold. Newspaper clippings. Child trafficking ring busted. 14. Children rescued. The article detailed a raid on an abandoned warehouse in Detroit. Among the rescued, a 13-year-old boy who had been missing for 2 years. There was a photo, grainy, black and white, a child wrapped in a blanket, being carried by an officer. Face obscured, but still somehow unmistakably Julian. Lily's breath caught. Oh my God. She turned the page. More details. Harrison Ashford had financed the raid, had taken a particular interest in one of the rescued boys, had adopted him soon after. That boy had become Julian Ashford. A noise in the hall snapped her out of the trance. She slammed the journal shut, and ducked behind a bookcase just as the door creaked open. Nathan entered, scanning the room. His hand went to his earpiece. "East wing clear," he murmured, continuing patrol. After he left, Lily stepped out from her hiding place, heart pounding. She turned toward the filing cabinets. Most were filled with business documents, ledgers, contracts. But she had a feeling that somewhere, in here, buried in the shadows of someone else's pain, was the truth she wasn't supposed to find. Lily's fingers trembled as she opened the final drawer. It was labeled Bennett. Every folder inside bore her father's name. She scanned the contents, bank records, emails, then surveillance photographs. Her breath caught as she recognized him in frame after frame, meeting with different men in shadowy locations. And then her heart stopped. One of the men was Edward Crane. In one photo, they exchanged an envelope outside what looked like an abandoned warehouse, a location not unlike the one in the article she'd read in Julian's journal. The implications were unmistakable and devastating. Her father hadn't just committed fraud. He'd been tied to the same people who had once victimized Julian. This wasn't about money. This was personal. Another file revealed her mother's medical records, not cancer treatment, as she'd been led to believe, but rehab, prescription drug abuse. The facility's address was the same one she'd visited, thinking her mother was undergoing chemotherapy. Everything was a lie. Their entire life had been built on deception. The last folder contained a single photo. Lily at 8 years old, standing beside a solemn boy at a charity event, a teen version of Julian Ashford. She stared, stunned. They had met before. On the back, someone had written in neat block letters, "Potential witnesses, memory-suppressed footsteps, echoed in the hall." Panicked, Lily shoved the folders back into the drawer, but a single page fluttered to the floor. No time to grab it. She ducked into a nearby closet, barely closing the slatted door before it creaked open again. Through the narrow openings, she saw them, Julian and Crane, enter the room. "Well, well," Crane said with mock delight, strolling in like he owned the place. "Your private sanctuary." "I'm honored. This meeting didn't happen," Julian said coldly. "You want information about the Bennett girl." Crane dropped into a chair, uninvited, his smile wolfish. Fascinating connection there. Lily froze, breath caught in her chest. "Does she know you've been watching her since she was a child?" Crane continued. "That you orchestrated her father's downfall? And his death?" Lily clapped a hand over her mouth, stifling a gasp. "His death was an accident," Julian snapped. "Of course it was," Crane replied smoothly. "Just like your paths crossing again was pure coincidence." He leaned forward. "Tell me, what happened when she touched you? I heard from Nathan it rattled you." Julian's jaw tightened. "That's none of your concern." "Oh, but it is. Everything about you is my concern, boy. I made you." Julian's voice was low, shaking with restrained fury. "You enslaved me? Harrison rescued me. He gave me a life. Harrison bought you," Crane sneered, circling the desk like a predator. "Different strategy, same principle. You were my finest acquisition until he interfered." He stopped, eyes gleaming. "And now you collect pretty things just like I taught you. I'm nothing like you." "No?" Crane chuckled. "Then why is Lily Bennett here? Revenge or something deeper, something primal?" Julian didn't answer. "You can't outrun who you are," Crane whispered, "and she'll learn that soon enough. Leave her out of this." "Too late," Crane said, heading toward the door. "Her family owes me, has for years. When you're done with her, I have buyers interested." Julian took a step forward. "If you touch her, you'll what? Expose me?" Crane smirked. "That would mean exposing yourself too. We're not so different, Julian. We both take what we want." The door closed behind him with a soft click. Julian stood still, but the tension poured off him in waves. Then he glanced down, noticed the page on the floor. He bent to pick it up, scanned it, then looked directly at the closet. "You can come out now, Lily." Heart pounding, she stepped into the open, chin raised despite the storm inside her. "You killed my father," she said. Julian shook his head. "No, but I didn't stop it either. Why? Because of what he did, and what he was still doing." He held up the page she'd dropped. It was a list of names. "Children's names. Your father identified families for Crane," Julian said softly. "Vulnerable homes. Kids who wouldn't be missed. He gave them up for money. Vulnerable families," Julian said quietly. "Children no one would miss." The room tilted around Lily. "I don't believe you." "The proof is in those files," he replied, steady and sad. "I've spent 10 years building a case against Crane and his network. Your father wasn't just part of it, he was key. And your mother?" She knew. She helped cover for him. Lily's voice cracked. "She's in rehab, a facility under surveillance. It's the safest place for her while we finish dismantling their operation." She clung to one word. "We." "You said we. You're fighting him?" Julian nodded. "With the Federal Bureau. I've been working with them for years." He stepped closer. "Did you see the photo of us when we were kids? I don't remember meeting you. They drugged the children at those events, suppressed memories. But some things—" His voice softened. "Some things stay." He paused. "That night at dinner, when you touched me, I remembered. The air between them changed. Heavy with memory, with truth." "What happens now?" Lily asked. "Now you know why you're really here," he said. "Not for revenge. For protection." She laughed bitterly. "You bought me. I removed you from Crane's reach," he countered. "The contract was the only legal way to do it. He was circling your family. You were next." They stood in his private office, the weight of her father's crimes sprawled across the desk between them. Outside, dawn was beginning to paint the sky with the quiet colors of a new day. "You should have told me. Would you have believed me?" His voice was tired. "A stranger telling you your father was tied to child traffickers?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. The evidence was undeniable. Her life, everything she thought she knew, was built on horrors she had never imagined. "Nathan's working with Crane," Julian continued. "He's been embedded here for years, reporting everything. Your presence had to appear legitimate." Lily remembered Nathan's smiles, his too casual comments, the subtle warnings. Julian turned to the wall behind his desk, pressing a hidden latch. A panel slid open, revealing a small safe. Inside was a flash drive. "This holds nearly everything, every financial trail, every coded transaction. But it doesn't show where they're operating now. We think your mother knows. She handled logistics. My mother wouldn't." Lily stopped, remembering the strange absences, her father's late-night drives, the envelope spent of money that always seemed to appear when they needed them most. "Was anything in my life real?" she whispered. Julian's face softened. "I asked myself that same question. After Harrison took me in. After the warehouse, a knock interrupted them. Mrs. Lee entered, her usual composure fraying. "Mr. Ashford, Mr. Reynolds is requesting Miss Bennett. He says it's urgent. Something about her mother." Julian and Lily locked eyes. "Tell him she'll be right there." After Mrs. Lee left, Julian turned to a drawer and removed a small compact mirror. "Take this. It's more than it looks, tracker and recorder built in. Whatever Nathan says, agree to it. We need to know what Crane is planning. You're using me as bait." "No," he said, voice steady. "I'm trusting you. As a partner, there's a difference." She took the device, their fingers brushed. A jolt surged between them, familiar now, like an echo of a buried truth. Another memory surfaced. A dark room. Small hands clasped in fear. "We knew each other," she whispered. "Back then, in that place." His jaw tensed. Later. Nathan's waiting. Nathan drove fast, tires skimming over the icy curves of the mountain road. She's at Aspen Valley Hospital, he said. Critical condition. What happened? Lily asked, clutching the compact mirror, Julian's disguised tracker, and recorders tight in her palm. Car went off Route 82 sometime last night. They found her this morning, Nathan replied, eyes flicking towards her in the rearview mirror. Lucky she's alive. At the hospital, Nathan didn't lead her through the front entrance. Instead, they slipped through service corridors, winding past utility rooms and empty staff stations. Shortcut, he explained casually, but Lily noticed something unsettling. There were barely any security cameras. No staff around. Too quiet. Finally, he opened a door to a private room. Inside, a woman lay still, hooked to machines. Her face was swollen, bruised beyond recognition, but something in Lily's gut screamed this wasn't right. Nathan lingered in the hallway, then shut the door behind them. "That's not your mother," he said flatly. Lily's hand instinctively closed tighter around the recording device. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about survival." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Crane knows you went into the East Wing. He knows you've seen the files. You've got two choices. Help him or vanish." "Help him how?" "Julian has a safe in his bedroom. There's a hard drive inside with everything evidence that could bring down Crane's entire operation." "And you want me to steal it?" Nathan nodded. "You get the drive, and in return, you and your mother get to live the rest of your lives far away, safe, comfortable." His tone softened, almost like sympathy. "Refuse, and bad things happen, just like they did with your father." Lily's voice cracked. "She's dead, isn't she? My real mother." Nathan didn't answer. "Some truths are better left buried." "And Julian?" she whispered. "What does it matter?" Nathan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "He bought you. Like livestock." Lily didn't flinch. She'd heard worse, but it still hurt. "He's obsessed with you," Nathan added, "because you remind him of the place he came from, the trauma." "That's not love, Lily. That's survival chemistry." The word hit hard. Trauma bonding. It cracked something inside her, something she didn't want to admit might be true. "When does Crane want the drive?" "Tonight. There's a benefit at the Aspen Institute. Julian will be there. You'll be here visiting your mother." Nathan handed her a keycard. "This gets you into his private elevator. The safe's behind the Rothko painting in his study. Combo is his adoption date, March 14th, 2005. "And after?" Lily asked. "Drop the drive in locker 3 at the pool house. Then go back to the mansion like nothing happened." He checked his watch. "I need your answer. Now." Julian's words echoed in her memory. "Agree to whatever he says." "I'll do it," she said. Nathan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Smart choice. I'll let Crane know." On the drive back, Lily stared out the window, mind racing. "Where is my mother really?" Nathan sighed. "Last I heard, Chicago. She's been working with Crane for years. She recruited your father into the organization." "She never had cancer," Lily whispered. "Nope. That was the cover story. Gave her freedom to move around without questions. Each revelation chipped away another piece of her past." "And my father's death?" she asked hollowly. Nathan shrugged. "He was skimming money, planning to run. Crane found out. Boat accidents are tidy." Back at the mansion, Julian was waiting. Though he pretended to be absorbed in paperwork, Lily could tell he'd been watching for her. "How is Miss Bennett's mother?" he asked, not looking up. "Stable, unconscious, but the doctors are hopeful," Nathan replied smoothly. "Good." Julian finally lifted his eyes. "Miss Bennett, you'll be joining me at the Aspen Institute tonight. Be ready by 7. Nathan frowned. "I thought she was staying behind." "Plans change," Julian said, voice unreadable. 7 o'clock. "Wear the blue gown." Upstairs, Lily activated the recording device and whispered everything Nathan had told her. She set it gently on the nightstand and went into the bathroom to compose herself. When she returned, Nathan was already there, holding the compact in his hand. "Well," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Interesting choice of accessories." His eyes narrowed. "Let me guess. Julian gave you this." Lily took an instinctive step back, her voice trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about." "We don't have time for games," Nathan said sharply. He slipped the compact into his pocket. Crane suspected Ashford might try something like this. "So we're changing the plan. You're coming with me. Now." "I can't just leave," Lily protested. "Security's busy responding to a false alarm on the west perimeter. It's a diversion." Before she could react, Nathan grabbed her arm and pulled her through the service hallways, dragging her past the kitchen and toward a side exit. Outside, a black SUV with tinted windows idled, engine running. "No!" Lily gasped, digging her heels in. She twisted hard, driving her elbow into his gut. Air whooshed from Nathan's lungs as he doubled over. She broke free and sprinted toward the main house, the gravel slipping beneath her heels. But he recovered quickly. He tackled her from behind. Her head struck stone. The world tilted violently. Through the blur, she saw him reaching for something inside his jacket. Then, a gunshot shattered the mountain's silence. Nathan collapsed beside her, blood spreading rapidly across his shoulder. Above them, Julian Ashford stood on the terrace, his face grim, a pistol still raised. "FBI! Don't move!" someone shouted. From the shadows, agents in tactical gear emerged, weapons drawn, surrounding the area. Lily tried to stand, but the world spun too fast. Her vision narrowed. The last thing she saw before blacking out was Julian running toward her, the cold mask gone, panic carved deep into his face. "Stay with me," he pleaded, gathering her into his arms. "Please. Stay with me." His voice followed her into unconsciousness. She woke to the sterile scent of antiseptic and the faint beep of hospital monitors. Her head throbbed. "Welcome back," said a quiet voice. Julian was sitting beside her bed, his suit gone, tie loose, a layer of stubble darkening his jaw. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "How long?" she asked. Her voice hoarse. 36 hours. You had a concussion." Doctors were concerned about swelling. Memories flooded back the struggle. The SUV, the gunshot. "Nathan?" "In federal custody," Julian said, his voice laced with satisfaction. "Crane 2. The FBI expedited the raid after the recording you made. It was enough to lock everything into motion." "And my mother?" Lily asked, bracing herself. Julian hesitated. "She was found in one of Crane's properties in Chicago. She's agreed to cooperate. In exchange for leniency." Lily shut her eyes. Everyone, her father, her mother, had been part of it. The whole foundation of her life was a lie. "I want to see her," she whispered. "You will," Julian promised, "when you're stronger." He stood slowly, looking like he carried the weight of the world. "There's something else you should know," he said. Lily looked up, heart already aching. "Your mother confirmed your father wasn't planning to run. He was going to expose Crane. He'd finally grown a conscience." Her breath caught. A small piece of her father's honor, reclaimed. He died for it. "What happens now?" she asked. "The FBI wants to place you in witness protection until the trial. And you?" Julian shook his head. "I've been working with them for years. My testimony's already locked in. Crane's empire is finished." There was a long pause. "So our arrangement," Lily said, the words catching in her throat. "It's over," he said gently. "The contract is void. You're free to go, wherever you want." His eyes met hers, quiet, steady, unreadable. "But there's something I want to show you first." 2 days later, against medical advice, Lily left the hospital with Julian. Instead of heading back to the mansion, they drove to a small private airstrip. A jet waited on the runway. "Where are we going?" she asked as they boarded. "Detroit." The flight was quiet. Julian worked on his laptop while clouds drifted by below. Neither of them said much, lost in the weight of everything unspoken. But they both knew the next part of the story would change everything. The silence in the car was thick with unspoken memories as the jet landed in Detroit. A black SUV was waiting for them on the tarmac, its government plates catching the morning light. The driver, a woman in her 40s, with a no-nonsense expression, stepped out. Agent Reeves. She introduced herself curtly before guiding them through the heart of the city, weaving between crumbling factories and boarded-up buildings. Lily stared out the window at the decaying industrial landscape. "Is this where it happened?" Julian gave a single nod, jaw tight. "This is where Harrison found me, where everything started." The SUV pulled up in front of an abandoned warehouse, encased by a rusted chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. Faded warning signs flapped in the wind. Inside, the building was empty except for the ghostly outlines of machinery once bolted to the concrete floor. Their footsteps echoed through the cavernous space like distant thunder. "This is where 14 children were kept," Julian said quietly, "ages 8 to 15. I was 13 when the FBI raid happened." Lily wrapped her arms around herself. The walls seemed to hum with memory. With pain. "How long were you here?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "Almost 2 years," he replied, voice steady, but his rigid posture betrayed the cost. "Crane ran his operation like a business," he continued. "He called us assets. Some were sold to wealthy buyers. Others like me were kept within the network." Lily's voice trembled. "Used? How?" Julian walked toward a section of wall where faint, hand-drawn lines remained measurements, ages, names rubbed away. Crane believed in creating perfect servants. He broke us down, trained us to scout other vulnerable children, kids no one would miss. He glanced back at her. "I was being groomed for that role, because I had a photographic memory." Lily stared at the wall, horror settling like ice in her bones. Those lines, they marked children's heights, growth over time, tracked like livestock. "My father," she whispered, "was one of Crane's scouts," Julian said. "Through his job at the school, he identified families in crisis, single parents, immigrants, homes broken by addiction or poverty. And my mother? She was recruited through him. Her job was to make new arrivals feel safe. She was the gentle face before the system broke them." Julian didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Lily felt sick. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "Because you need to understand why I did what I did," Julian said, turning to face her fully. "The night the FBI raided this place, a little girl had just been brought in. 8 years old, scared, but still fighting." He paused. "She bit one of the handlers, tried to escape. I hid her in a ventilation shaft until the agents found her." Lily's breath caught. Her heart pounded in her chest as the memory returned dim and shadowed, like a dream long buried. "That girl," she whispered. "That was me," Julian nodded. "You were only here for hours, not weeks or months like the rest of us. They gave you something, a drug, to suppress memory, standard protocol for new arrivals. But some things leave scars. The flashes," she murmured. At the dinner table, the boy with sad eyes, they separated us after the raid. Different foster homes, different states. I never knew what happened to you until 10 years later. I saw your father's name on investment documents tied to my company. I knew. So you started watching us. I started building a case," Julian said, "against your father, your mother, Crane, but I couldn't act not without compromising the whole investigation." The FBI needed the entire network taken down, not just a few middlemen. He stepped closer, voice quiet but firm. When Harrison died and left me everything, I finally had the power to protect you and finish what we started. By buying me? Lily said softly. There was no anger in her tone now, only clarity. It was the only way to pull you out without raising suspicion. Crane was watching your family, planning to use you as leverage if your father ever talked. The contract gave us legal cover. Lily looked around the warehouse, then back at Julian. And for the first time since it all began, she saw the full shape of the truth. Not just her story, but their story. She had felt the distance, his careful detachment, the walls he kept so meticulously in place. Part of it was strategy, but part of it was pain. Julian looked away. I don't experience physical contact like most people, he said. Not after what happened here. Touch became overwhelming, even painful. He paused, voice lower now, almost vulnerable. Except with you. They stood together in the very warehouse where their paths had first crossed as children, where their lives had nearly ended, and somehow begun. Lily took a step forward, slow and sure. Why me? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe because you were the only good thing that happened here. You were brave when I had forgotten how to be. The silence between them was fragile, heavy with memory. Then, without hesitation, Lily reached out, their fingers intertwined. No jolt, no recoil, only a quiet recognition. I want to testify, she said suddenly. Against Crane? Against my mother? All of them. Julian looked at her, alarm flickering in his gaze. It will be dangerous. You didn't run, she replied, her grip tightening on his. You fought back. Now it's my turn. From the grimy warehouse windows, late afternoon light poured in, long shadows stretching across the cold concrete shadows, where children had once wept, once fought to survive. Then Julian's phone rang. Ashford, he answered, then listened. His expression changed instantly, jaw clenched, eyes sharp. When? A pause. Are you certain? Another pause. Lock down the safe house. I'm on my way. He ended the call, gaze locking with hers. Crane escaped federal custody 30 minutes ago, he said, and your mother's missing. Lily's breath caught. Inside help, he added. They think Nathan orchestrated it. His hand was still in hers. They'll come for us now, he said, especially you. Fear rose in her throat, but beneath it, something steadier. Resolve. Then we'll be ready. They rushed toward the SUV where Agent Reeves already waited, visibly on edge. At the vehicle, Julian paused, facing her fully. The contract between us, he said quietly, it's destroyed. Whatever happens next is your choice. You don't belong to me, or to anyone. Lily met his eyes, steady, unafraid. I choose to finish this, together. For the first time since she had met him, Julian smiled a real smile, one that softened his features and made him look almost like the boy she'd once known in the dark. Together, he said. Behind them, Detroit's skyline blazed with sunset, casting everything in the hue of aftermath, like a battlefield where the fighting had momentarily paused. The war wasn't over, but this time they weren't facing it as captor and captive. They were allies, bound by a shared past and the fragile, dangerous hope of a future. The FBI safe house in northern Michigan looked like a vacation cabin, weathered wood, wraparound porch, nestled deep among towering pine trees. But the black SUVs and armed agents patrolling the perimeter told a different story. Inside, Lily paced the living room while Julian spoke with the lead agent. Their voices were low, tense. It had been 3 days since Crane's escape. 3 days without a trace of him or of her mother. We're moving you tomorrow, Julian said after the agent left. Why? They intercepted chatter. There's concern this location is compromised. Where are they taking us? They won't tell me. I won't know until you're safe. His voice remained even, but she could read it now, the tightness in his jaw, the way his shoulders carried invisible weight. What if they find us before then? There are 6 federal agents posted around the property, he said, and a response team 20 minutes away. He moved to the window, eyes scanning the darkening tree line. We've taken every precaution. Lily stood beside him, their reflections faint ghosts in the glass. You don't think that's enough, do you? Julian didn't answer immediately. Crane survived 30 years in that business, he said finally, because he's unpredictable, because he always plans 2 steps ahead. Julian's voice was low and hard. I underestimated him once. Never again. A sudden ringing shattered the stillness. The satellite phone on the table buzzed, its glow stark in the dim room. Julian snatched it up, listening intently. Then his face changed. Lily had seen him cold, furious, even wounded, but never afraid. This was raw, unfiltered fear. How many? He barked. A pause. His jaw clenched. Then he hung up and turned to her. There's been an attack. Eastern checkpoint. Agents down. Communications have gone dark. As if on cue, the lights flickered and cut out completely, plunging the cabin into a silence that hummed with threat. Emergency backup. Lighting kicked in, casting eerie blue shadows across the walls. Julian didn't hesitate. In one swift motion, he bent, pulled a handgun from a hidden ankle holster, and pressed it into Lily's hand. Do you know how to use this? Point and pull, she said, gripping it tightly, her voice trembling but steady. The safety's here. He guided her finger. Stay behind me. The front door exploded open. An agent staggered in, blood pouring from a head wound. They're coming at least 6, he collapsed mid-sentence. Julian dragged the agent behind the couch and checked his pulse. He's alive, concussion maybe. A crackle came over the agent's radio. All units fall back to the cabin. Repeat, fall base static. We need to move, Julian said, already grabbing a black backpack from the doorway. There's an emergency tunnel under the storm cellar. Leads half a mile through the woods. He shoved the pack into her hands. Put this on. They had just reached the kitchen when the first shots blew in the front windows. Glass exploded around them as bullets tore into the walls, sending wood and drywall flying. Julian tackled her behind the island. Monty! A voice shouted from outside, sharp and familiar. Send out the girl and this ends quick. Lily's blood turned to ice. Nathan. Julian's jaw tightened. The trap door is in the pantry. When I start shooting, go for it. Don't stop. I'll cover you. I'm not leaving you. This isn't a choice, he said fiercely. If they get you, everything we've done falls apart. Before she could argue, he rose just enough to fire 3 precise shots through the shattered windows. Go! Lily scrambled on all 4s across the floor as more bullets tore through the kitchen. She dove into the pantry, yanked aside a woven rug, and uncovered the trapdoor. Pulling it open, she stared into a steep staircase, vanishing into shadow. She hesitated, then looked back. Julian was still exchanging fire. Moving like someone trained, not just a businessman with a gun. Their eyes met. He nodded, urging her down. She descended quickly, boots thudding against the wood steps. The cellar was cold and musty. Emergency lights glowed faintly along the edges. She moved fast, weaving past shelves of emergency supplies until she found the hidden door behind the storage crates. Grunting, she pulled it open, revealing a tunnel. Just as she turned, footsteps thundered behind her. She raised the gun, finger tightening. It's me, Julian called softly, stepping into the light. His left sleeve was soaked in blood. You're hurt. I'll live. Move. He pulled the door shut behind them and secured it with a locking pin. The agents are holding them off, he said, breath labored. We've got a head start. But not much. The tunnel was narrow, claustrophobic. They crouched, moving as fast as they could. Damp earth brushed her shoulders. The air smelled of mildew and metal. "How did they find us?" Lily panted. "Inside source. Has to be. Crane has eyes everywhere." They reached a junction. Julian paused. "This way." The tunnel narrowed even more, forcing them to crawl. Her knees scraped against concrete. Her lungs burned. It felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes before they reached a ladder. Julian climbed first, testing the hatch at the top. "Wait here," he whispered. Then he slowly pushed the cover upward, camouflaged as a fallen tree. Julian scanned the tree line before helping Lily out of the tunnel. They emerged into a dense stretch of forest, moonlight barely piercing the canopy above. The cold night air turned their breath into smoke. In the distance, the faint wail of sirens echoed through the hills. "Backup's finally coming?" Lily whispered. Julian shook his head. Too late for the agents at the cabin. He paused, orienting himself in the dark. "There's an emergency vehicle, hidden about a quarter-mile east. If we reach it, snap." A twig cracked nearby. Julian turned sharply, pushing Lily behind him. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, gun in hand. "Well, isn't this touching?" Nathan sneered. "The great Julian Ashford. Holding hands, who would have thought?" He raised his pistol. The untouchable finally found someone he can stand to touch. Poetic. "It's over," Julian said calmly. "You won't get far. Federal agents have these woods surrounded." "Maybe," Nathan shrugged. "But not in time." He motioned with his weapon. "Crane's waiting. He's looking forward to finishing your training, Monty, and starting hers." Lily stepped forward, fury simmering beneath her fear. "Where's my mother?" Nathan smiled, teeth bared. "Fulfilling her end of the deal. She traded you for her freedom." Julian's body tensed beside her. He was clearly calculating, wounded arm limp at his side, blood still soaking through his sleeve. "Don't," Nathan warned. "Even hurt, you're dangerous." "That's why I brought backup." 2 more men emerged from the trees, rifles raised. "Drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them," Nathan ordered. "And Lily, drop the gun, or I shoot Julian in the head." She placed the pistol on the ground slowly. "Good girl. Now," Nathan continued, "start walking. The van's waiting." They were marched through the forest under moonlight, boots crunching over leaves, the wind carrying the tension like static. Julian's breathing was heavier now. Lily stole glances at him, pale, unsteady. He needed medical attention. "He's bleeding badly," she said. "He needs help. Crane will decide what he needs," Nathan snapped. After nearly 15 minutes, they reached a clearing. A black van idled, engine humming low. The side door slid open. Inside, a woman sat waiting, her silhouette framed by dim interior lights. "Hello, darling," said Catherine Winters, her voice smooth. "It's been too long." Lily froze, her mother, the woman who had raised her, who had sold her. "Mom, such disappointment in your voice," Catherine sighed. "One day you'll understand." "We all make sacrifices." "Enough," Nathan barked. "Get them in. Crane's waiting." As one of the guards stepped forward to grab Lily, Julian suddenly stumbled, collapsing into the man. It looked like weakness. Until the guard screamed. Julian had buried a hidden blade into the man's thigh. "Run!" he shouted to Lily, throwing himself at Nathan. Gunfire erupted. Chaos exploded through the trees. Lily dove behind a thick oak as bullets shredded the bark overhead. She caught a glimpse of Julian, wrestling with Nathan, fists and weapons clashing in a blur of fury. The second guard charged toward her, firing blindly. Lily scrambled backward, heart pounding, hands searching the forest floor until her fingers closed around a heavy branch. As the man rounded the tree, she swung hard. The branch cracked across his face. He staggered, then raised his weapon with murder in his eyes. A gunshot rang out. The guard collapsed. Lily looked up, staring in disbelief. Her mother stood behind the smoking gun. "Mom?" Don't mistake this for motherly love, Catherine said coldly. Crane would have discarded me the moment you were delivered. I simply beat him to it. He had you, Catherine said flatly, lowering the gun. I had a choice. I chose survival, nothing more. Lily stared at the woman who had once sung her lullabies. Her mother, her betrayer. Before she could respond, another gunshot split the night. She spun toward the noise. Julian and Nathan were still struggling, but now both were on their knees, grappling in the dirt. Blood smeared Julian's face, his wounded arm nearly limp. Nathan pressed a pistol beneath Julian's chin. This ends now, he growled, blood streaming from a fresh cut above his eye. Drop the weapon, Catherine, or I blow his brains across the trees. Catherine hesitated, her gun still aimed. Crane wants him alive. Crane will adapt? Nathan snapped. Last chance? The silence that followed was absolute. Then a sharp crack shattered it. Nathan's body went rigid. The bullet struck squarely between his eyes. He collapsed without a sound. Catherine lowered the smoking gun. Her eyes were unreadable. Like I said, she murmured to Julian, self-preservation. Julian groaned, stumbling upright, cradling his arm. Why? He demanded. Nathan was going to kill us all, Catherine replied casually, including me. Then take the credit for capturing you himself. I simply rewrote the ending. Before anyone could speak again, voices rose through the trees. Flashlight beams cutting through the dark. FBI agents. Catherine's expression changed. Hard, closed off. This changes nothing, she said to Lily. I'm still leaving, and if you're smart, you'll forget you ever had a mother. Then she turned and vanished into the forest. Gone, leaving behind the dead, the wounded, and a daughter who no longer knew if she should mourn or celebrate her absence. Julian swayed, then collapsed against a tree. Julian! Lily rushed to him, catching his fall. Pressing her hand to the wound on his arm, stay with me, she pleaded words she'd once heard from him. Sirens wailed closer now. Flashlights flared across the clearing. Shouts rang out as agents swarmed the scene, weapons raised, barking orders. Paramedics! Someone yelled. Julian's eyes fluttered open, clouded with pain. He found her face and tried to smile. I told you, he whispered. I'd protect you. She held his bloodied hand tightly in both of hers. No, she said, voice fierce. We protected each other. As medics rushed to stabilize him, Lily refused to let go. Their fingers remained locked bloodied, trembling, but intertwined. A bond forged in chaos, in shared wounds, in survival. Don't go, he whispered, barely conscious as they lifted him onto a stretcher. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Not this time. Not ever again. She climbed into the ambulance beside him, sirens wailing into the night. And somewhere between captor and captive, vengeance and redemption, they had become something else entirely, two broken pieces that had finally found where they fit. They loaded Julian onto the stretcher, blood still blooming through the bandage on his shoulder. Lily held his hand the entire time. I told you I'd protect you, he whispered, voice barely audible through the haze of pain. We protected each other, she replied, her hand never leaving his. That's what love does. Federal agents swarmed around them, securing the scene, shouting commands. But none of it reached Lily. All she could hear was the steady beeping of the monitor as the paramedics worked, and the ragged sound of Julian's breathing beside her. Don't leave, he murmured again, eyes fluttering closed. Never again, she promised. She climbed into the ambulance with him, sirens wailing, lights slicing through the night. And for the first time in a long, long while, she didn't feel afraid. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. Trials began. Testimonies were filed. Names once whispered in shadows were finally spoken aloud in courtrooms, under oath in front of the world. Lily gave hers with calm resolve. So did Julian. What began in darkness ended, at last, in the light. Months later, in a quiet corner of upstate New York, Lily stood on the porch of a small lake house. The wind was gentle, the sky soft with the gold of late afternoon. Inside, Julian sat by the fire, one arm in a sling, a cup of tea in his good hand. He looked up as she stepped in and gave her that rare smile, real and quiet, the one that only ever belonged to her. They had both lost too much. But in that loss, they'd found something the world could never take, peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from remembering and surviving anyway. There was no ceremony to mark the moment they stopped being captor and captive. No line drawn in the sand. It happened slowly, with every wound tended, every secret shared, every morning they woke up and chose to stay. Together. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something stronger than fear. Something built not despite the darkness, but because of it. Two broken people, two fractured pasts. And yet, somehow, when placed side by side, they made something whole. Because sometimes the ones who've been through the most are the ones who know exactly how to hold on. And in the end, maybe love is just that, a quiet vow between two survivors. Whatever happens, I'll stay. Thank you for taking the time to walk with us through this story, a journey of pain, truth, and ultimately healing. We know these stories are not always easy to hear, but they matter because they remind us that even in the darkest moments, light can still be found, that broken pieces can be mended, that love, trust, and resilience are not just words, they're lifelines. Your presence, your attention, and your open heart mean more than you know. From all of us behind the story, thank you for listening, for feeling, and for believing in the power of stories that heal. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never stop choosing hope.